Hello, my name is Tucha. In the video today, I would like to talk about the play Trifles of Susan Glaspell. My video will focus on the meaning of space and symbolic details in the play. Hope you enjoy. Susan Glaspell was born in 1876 and passed away in 1948. She is always mentioned as a pioneer of modern theatre. She co-founded the first modern American theater company, the Provincetown Players, and was a Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright, actress, novelist, and journalist. Most of her 9 novels, 14 plays, and over 50 short stories are set in Iowa, where she was raised. While he talked about her as the great American thinker in dramatic form, she is spirit and the mind and the soul of the real American today, expressed in literature. Talking about her play, it is also said that the plays of Glaspell show her struggle to find new theatrical forms and to give voice to the American women whose anxieties were as valid in the American of the first decade of the 20th century as they are in the global world today. About the Provincetown Player Company. It began as a group of writers and artists who were vacationing in Provincetown, Massachusetts. They presented their plays first on July 15, 1915, on the veranda of Hutton Hapgood and Nice Boys rented Ocean View Cottage. The 2 plays were Constancy by Nice Boys and Suppressed Desires by husband and wife George Cramcook and Susan Glaspell. The group's primary purpose was to give venue to American playwrights and new American plays, purposely encouraging plays that would be in contrast to the kind of melodramas and triangle relationship plays they observe producer were presenting on Broadway. About the play Trifle. Trifle is a one-act play. The play is loosely based on the murder of John Hossack, which Glaspell reported on while she was working as a journalist on the Des Moines Daily News. Sorry for pronouncing the name. I'm not very good in pronouncing French. On December 2nd of the 1900, Hossack's wife Margaret was reported to the police that an unknown person broke into their house and murdered John, her husband, with an axe while she was sleeping next to him. Margaret was arrested for the murder a few days later at John's funeral. Glaspell followed the story closely and reported on its development, filling a total of 26 stories on the case over the course of Hossack's arrest and trial. Initially, Glaspell's reporting painted a rich portrait of Margaret Hossack as a formidable, cold-blooded woman thoroughly capable of having beaten her husband brained out with an axe. However, after Glaspell visited the Hossack family farmhouse to gather materials for her next column, her tone shifted considerably. Subsequent reports from Glaspell showed Margaret Hossack under a much more sympathetic light as a meek woman who misses her children. Susan Glaspell writes Trifle in 10 days just prior to the production and premiere at the Wharf Theatre for the 2nd season plays of the Provincetown Player. Now let's talk about space in play. The setting space of a play is crucial in modern drama, especially realistic play, where the setting is very carefully and intricately set up. Firstly, it is because in Glaspell's play, most of her protagonists are female characters who's trapped in houses that they cannot call home, and characters who fight for their own space, given the significance to the kitten in the play Trifles. Secondly, the only space in the play is the kitchen, while the main incident of the story, which is the murder scene of John Wright, happened in another place, the bedroom, and the heroine of the story, Minnie Wright, is imprisoned, and therefore invisible on the stage. The kitchen is merely the place where the sheriff and attorney comes to find the evidence, and where Mrs. Hill and Mrs. Peter have their conversation about the incident. However, the kitchen itself and the details it obtained reveal Minnie's life and her situation, as well as the important evidence that prove the motives of Minnie's crime. We can see that the kitchen is clearly considered as women's place, despite their willingness. However, in the beginning of the scene, when the men were in the kitchen, the women were dominated. They stood next to each other, nervously, when the men stooping around, judging, criticizing Minnie for not having homemaking instinct. Mrs. Peter and Mrs. Hill can only weakly defend her. The kitchen also shows the possibility of mobility of man and woman. When men are freely to go upstairs, outside, women, like Minnie, whose life can be portrayed in the kitchen, and Mrs. Hill and Mrs. Peter, who are also trapped in the kitchen the whole act. Another very small detail is the apron and the shawl. These are the things Minnie asked Mrs. Peter and Mrs. Hill to bring to her in prison. Although at first they were both perplexed with the request, they both come up with the answer that it will make Minnie feel more natural in prison, because it can make her cell just like in her kitchen. This realization came naturally to Mrs. Hill and Mrs. Peter, making them realize that their lives are pretty similar. All of them are imprisoned in their own house with their duty. Another detail that we can see in the kitchen is the spoiled fruit preserved and the broken stove. When Minnie asked Mrs. Hill and Mrs. Peter to check on the fruit preserved and the stove, she knows that the fire would be out and her fruit would gone bad due to the fact that the stove was broken. On a farm, in a farmhouse, fixing or mending a stove is the job of the man. Same with fixing an unhinged door. But this job, we can see that, were not done by Mr. Wright. The cold nets, due to the broken stove, cover the room, make everyone shiver, but no one complained about him. While men accusing Minnie for not having the homemade instinct because of some dirty hand towel and pants, which was because she was taken away in hurry. It showed the double standard of man, and the fact that law is made for the sake of man contributed to the decision of the two women to protect Minnie for the sake of women. Rocking chair is also appeared in the kitchen, which is very odd detail, because the rocking chair is something that we often see on a porch or in the yard, somewhere with a view and nature, so that you can relax. The rocking chair, on the other hand, appeared in the kitchen, and with some imagination, it can comes with the image of Minnie rocking back and forth inside the kitchen before or after she killed John, so that even after killing her husband, she is still trapped in the confinement of the kitchen, cannot move beyond. The rocking chair showed the impossibility of mobility, whether or not before or after her husband was killed. Another very important detail in the play is the log cabin quilt. The fact that men laughed at the quilt and the concerning of women show that men do not appreciate women's work, although the quilt is a main thing that helped to keep them warm in a farmhouse, especially in one with a broken stove. Log cabin pattern is a type of pattern where there is a red square in the center, surrounded strictly lines by lines. This pattern visualizes Minnie's life, being imprisoned strictly, no chance of escaping. The bad sewing on one final part show the instability of Minnie, mentally and physically, and also the long finish of the quilt, her confinement as soon as possible. And the last detail is the death bird, which is also very important to prove Minnie's crime. The death bird is a key evidence which is essential to convict Minnie. The bird metaphor Minnie's life before and after her marriage. The death bird reminded Mrs. Hale about Minnie's past and Mrs. Peters' unborn child of herself. Before that, through Mrs. Hale reminiscence, Minnie's was like an adorable bird with freedom and voice, while after that she is killed, being trapped in the domestic duty, which is her kitchen, no freedom, just hopeless confinement and stillness. This is also the key point of empathy between Mrs. Peter and Mrs. Hale with Minnie. Witnessing Minnie's kitchen, they have realized that their lives are so much in common. They are all confined in a space by duty that is set by man and for the sake of man. The rage and violence of Mrs. Peter when she recalled her kitten being caught in the past show that she understands and sympathizes with the motives of Minnie's revenge. The bird was killed, just like Minnie was killed by her marriage. The decision to protect Minnie also comes from this empathy. That is the end of my video today. I hope you enjoyed that. These are the work I use for reference. Thank you so much for listening.